CDC, Shannon, and I was gonna text this to you the day that the announcement came out, but I was like, yo, I think I'm feeling good enough to do the podcast again. So let's just save it for podcast conversation. So the CDC, Shannon, since we've last spoken on this podcast, they've come out. They came out and said, "Yo, if you are vaccinated, you do not have to wear a mask." And so various indoor or outdoor, Shannon. And so
the indoor part shocked me really.
Well, it shocked a bunch of people. There was some epidemiologists on Twitter who was saying that, yo, that announcement shocked even them. And in fact, he went as far as to say that he disagreed with the CDC, and he was encouraging people to not stop wearing their mask for reasons that I will explain, later. But so, Shannon, do you still trust the CDC? Well, did you trust the CDC? If so, has your trust in them changed, and why?
Yeah, I mean, I did trust the CDC. My trust in them, I don't distrust them now, but like it's just a little shady, this announcement, because it was so out of left field. Like it just came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So up until recently, they were still saying that even though you were vaccinated, you still have to wear a mask. And then all of a sudden you're like, nope, don't have to anymore. And I'm just like, I don't really understand. It was really random and it came out of nowhere, like completely out of nowhere. And also I just don't. So I went to the gym on Wednesday, when the mandate lifted in New York. And they were like, I walked in and they were like, oh, are you vaccinated? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, okay, well, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask in here if you don't want to. But they didn't ask me for any proof if I was vaccinated or not, or anything of that sort. So I'm just like, how are people regulating this? Are you checking people's vaccination cards? Like are people just going to say that they're vaccinated and just be walking around with them? Like, this is the part I don't trust, is that the execution of making sure that non-vaccinated people still wear a mask. Like, I just feel like that is going to fall through the cracks completely. So it's going to be a disaster.
Shannon, there was a tweet that I saw on Twitter one day that said, when I was a child, adults seemed like they were, much more smarter than I was. And now that I'm an adult, I see how ridiculous that is. They are relying on like self-reporting with like the vaccination stuff. And to me, that is the wildest shit I ever heard in my life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yo, do you know how many people lie on for little things? People lie about why they was late to work. People lie about, where they was at the other day to their spouses and wives. So what makes you think in a world where people lie next to the person they go to bed with at night, what makes you think they're going to be honest with strangers?
Right. Exactly. Especially about this. The amount of people that don't want to wear masks in the first place, and the amount of people, those are also the same people that don't want to get vaccinated. So
that is another great point. The people who are most likely to lie about getting vaccinated are also the people who are most likely, or who were most likely not being safe during this stuff, and so are more likely to come into your establishment with the coronavirus. Mm-hmm. Why are people not seeing this? But to my earlier question to Shannon, I want to answer myself as far as, did I trust the CDC? I knew these hoes was lying from the beginning, Shannon. From the beginning. Remember when we first started this and the CDC came out against mask and Dr. Fauci was against mask? And I was like, well, why are you guys saying mask? The public shouldn't wear masks because it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. But then you're also saying that we have to make sure that the masks are reserved for our healthcare workers. That doesn't make no sense. And so I knew immediately, they're lying. I get why they're lying, but they are lying nonetheless. And so I'm going to wear a mask because if it's good enough for healthcare workers, then damn it, it's good enough for me. And so I wore the mask, right? But then they also came out and lied. Once we had the information coming back about fomites. Remember earlier in the pandemic, Shannon, we were worried that you could catch the coronavirus from surfaces?
Yes.
Yeah. The data on that changed fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. Yet the CDC never released an announcement saying, hey, you know what? Surface doesn't seem to be a primary mode of infection. So most people aren't catching this from surfaces, doorknobs, and touching their face. Right now, I have some theories as to why. It's because like, I mean, it could be because it, as people kept believing that they could catch this stuff from surfaces, they were buying up all of these cleaning products, and so was there some some behind the scenes deals between certain cleaning companies and the government? Who knows? Who knows, right? And then once we got the vaccine, they were saying that even if you were vaccinated, you can't return to normal, right?
Yep.
You remember that, right?
Yep.
Fauci said, "I'm vaccinated, but I'm still not going to do these things because I can catch this thing and still spread it." Okay, well, tell me, Fauci, did that change? Meaning, can people who are vaccinated still catch the coronavirus and still spread it to people who are not vaccinated? If that fact has not changed, okay, then why did the policy change for the mask wearing recently? I'll tell you why. This is all about money.
Yeah, all of it. I was about to say that.
This is all about money. Here's the situation. And I'm gonna piece this together for those of you watching and listening right now.
Mm-hmm.
If you've noticed, there have been a bunch of Republican states recently that have pulled out of the federal unemployment benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they're doing this is because people aren't returning to work because they are making enough money where they don't have to go out there and work minimum wage because the government's giving them, $300 a week. And in certain places, that's a lot. Like in New York City, $300 a week ain't nothing. But if you work somewhere in like, Mississippi or Tennessee or Kentucky, you get $300 a week. And if you could get kind of just like, okay, well, I'll do some side jobs here or there, and, come up with some other money. Or if it's you and your spouse getting $300 a week, you don't have to go out there and get that minimum wage job.
Yep.
And so what is happening right now is we have jobs looking for workers, but workers aren't going into the workforce. And so what they're trying to do is fast forward us to back to normal. So step one was rejecting the unemployment benefits. Step two is, okay, get rid of the mask. Why? If you get rid of the mask, you get rid of it. It removes the reality of the pandemic. And so even though the coronavirus is still here, in fact, we have a bunch of variants going around.
Yeah. Yeah.
As long as, I'm going to wrap this up. As long as you don't see people wearing masks, Shannon, you think it's over. As long as you see people wearing masks and stuff, you'll always remember, oh shit, there's a coronavirus strain out there taking people out. But if you remove the mask, people forget. They're more likely to return to a level of normalcy. You remove the unemployment benefits, people then go back into work. They're no longer worried about catching the coronavirus, and then you can kind of speed this along to get the country back where it needs to be economically. That is why the CDC changed their policy. It had nothing to do with the science changing. It is the CDC, and this is some scandalous shit. It is the CDC working in conjunction with the federal government for economic reasons. Mm-hmm. So an organization that should be concerned about health is working with the federal government because financially the country is in trouble. And that's kind of messed up. But go ahead, Shannon. Sorry, what was you saying?
It's crazy to me that we are still like nobody announced, you know how like whoever the person is, I forgot his title, that officially announced that we were in a pandemic. It's crazy to me that like it has not been officially announced that we are no longer in a pandemic, but yet we're going about life as if we are. And to me, that's kind of crazy. Like, I feel like nothing should have been lifted until it was officially declared that there is no more pandemic. But here we are, still in it. While like you have a whole of India like suffering from this triple massive mutant variant, and people are saying like, oh, like this could be the end of India, like losing thousands of people a day. But yet here we are, like there is no imminent danger. It's really like it's wild to me.
So here's where I disagree with you, but agree with you at the same time. I don't think the lockdown should continue.
No, not the lockdowns. I just meant like the declaration, because like it was declared that we were in a pandemic, but like,
Yeah.
I don't think the shutdown happened like immediately after that, but like it was a result of announcing it, but it was still announced that it's officially a pandemic, which we're still in. So
Yeah. So if you're vaccinated, I do think your life can return somewhat to normalcy in certain degrees. For example,
yeah.
if you're vaccinated, and your friends are vaccinated, you can absolutely go out to
Oh
each
yeah.
other's houses and go out into the world and do things and
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. So we're not saying we disagree with that. What
No.
we're saying, or at least for me, what I'm saying though is that the science hasn't changed regarding the
Yeah.
mask mandate.
Oh,
And
no.
so,
When I said that nothing should have been lifted, I meant the mask mandate shouldn't have been lifted.
okay, well,
Yeah.
so let's be fair though. Do you remember when Texas got rid of their mask mandate?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, there hasn't been. There was never an uptick in cases.
Oh, okay.
Right. And I remember when you was talking and you said that he was an idiot, and I said, "Well, look, Shannon, maybe he may be right." Right?
Hmm.
Like maybe a couple of weeks will go by, we won't see a rise in cases, and it'll be a good sign that hey, maybe we are on the other side of this issue. And it appears it appears looking back that he might have been in the right about getting rid of the mask mandate. And so I'm not saying we shouldn't be taking certain steps to get back to normal. What I'm
I
saying
mean,
is
mhm.
this that the policy isn't being the science isn't dictating the policy.
No, it's politics and money and
Yes, politics and money
And
that is dictating the policy, and that I find to be problematic. That's what I'm saying.
yeah. And actually, I don't really mind the mask mandate being lifted for vaccinated people, but I just know that, like I said earlier, I just know that there's not going to be, no one's really going to be checking for people's vaccination cards. So
And that's another
what
thing that
I'm
I
concerned
think
about.
is that there's no
It's not
strategy
going to
or
be
planning
enforced,
here.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
like they say, like, oh, only vaccinated people can do this, but it's not going to be enforced, really.
well, to me, you have to kind of construct your policy knowing or predicting how people are going to act,
Mhm.
even if they don't fall in line with certain conditions. So yes, vaccinated people can go out into the world, but guess what? Do you think unvaccinated people are not going to go back into the world? If you do
No,
think
they're going
that,
to go right back into the world,
that's what I'm saying. And
hiding behind all
so
the vaccinated people.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so your public policy has to take that into consideration. Like, okay, well, whatever we do, we have to, do it knowing that people who are not vaccinated are going to go back out into the world as well. And so, do we think that most of the country has reached a threshold where things will be safe? Yada yada yada. Now, once again, all we have to do is really wait. I'm not really going back to normal yet. I'm gonna sit back and relax for like a month after New York City opens back up. I think when do we open back up all the way?
I thought it happened already. Wasn't it supposed to be Wednesday when the max mandate lifted? Because
I think so.
first they said July, and then they moved it up 2 months, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, what is happening? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was this Wednesday, and so I'm gonna be chilling until the end of June. Watching the corona cases, seeing do things spike, do things go up. It is a variant responsible for most of the new cases? How deadly is the variant? Is it more transmissible? Does it evade people's vaccinations? I'm going to be watching all of these things and see how things play out. But yeah, my problem, like I said, my problem is not us going back to normal, so to speak. My problem is none of this seems to be dictated by science and data. It seems to be dictated by policy and economics. And once a country begins to do that, that is when I begin to question your intentions.